What's up, everyone? Pags here at MEI Studio. We have a pretty off-the-wall episode this time. Instead of focusing on one mic, we're going to be looking at a bunch of one-trick pony kind of mics that do a thing that most regular mics don't. It's all about specialty or effect mics this week on the Mic Locker. For a while, I'd been trying to figure out if I should do individual videos for a bunch of these mics or kind of lump them together since they're all a bit odd. How can a mic be odd? I can hear some of you saying, all except for bark over at obscure mics. Well, we're going to get to that. This video and the last are kind of a crossover point for the channel. After speaking to some people that I look up to here in YouTube land, I've come to the conclusion that I really should branch out a little bit and get into more of the studio side of things rather than just the mic reviews. There's loads of history and usefulness in so many things we have here that it doesn't really make sense to limit the channel just to the closet that sits off to my right. While the microphone is the second element in any live recording chain, the artist or instrument being the first, there are many things that follow, such as the preamp, interface, compressors, EQs, effects, the list goes on. With that in mind, let's take a dive into today's topic of effect or specialty mics. Occasionally, I find myself looking for something different that goes against the idea that things should be captured as clean and subjectively good as possible. The reasons for this could be anything from a legit production decision to the desire to experiment with something outside of the norm. Sylvia Massey made a career of doing this kind of thing after all, so what's out there? What are some of the options for different tone bending tools that we can get our hands on? To be honest, there's no shortage out there, but you do need to know what you're looking for. Let's start with some of the more popular mics and work to the more weird kind of things. First up is the Shure 520, aka the Green Bullet. Originally released around 1949 as a public address and dispatch mic, this mic has a long and storied history that we're not going to go too far into. The originals were mounted to a stand that had a PTT or push-to-talk button and were painted a drab olive or army green. It was and still is a higher impedance microphone coming in at over 1 kiloohm, though there were versions that were released that featured dual impedance a little later on. The mic was later re-released with a volume knob on the mic where the stand mount used to be. This is kind of a pain in the butt since you have no way to mount this mic now to a mic stand if you want to use it for anything else except for harmonica playing, which, because of its size and shape, harmonica players took to this mic, which could fit in the hand securely while still holding on to the harp. The high impedance allowed the mic to be plugged directly into a guitar amp where some saturation or overdrive could be added to give the harmonica a real cutting, nasty sound that was perfect for blues and rock. Legend has it that harpist Marion Little Walter Jacobs took to playing with the Green Bullet, and just about every blues player followed his lead. There are loads of these mics on the used market from the past 70 years or so, and they're still in production today with users claiming, like everything else that Shure makes, that the older versions were better. I have no intention of testing that out, but I'm going to assume based on my previous videos where I tested vintage Shure mics against their modern counterparts, there's probably little to no difference, and people just have a mental block that the older ones are just magically better. To be fair, though, Shure has admitted to changing the element in this mic a few times over the years, so there may be something to that, but honestly, for what this mic does, it's not worth it for me to take that dive. The current model set you back around 140 USD and features the volume knob on the bottom. The cable with a standard 1/4-inch TS connector is permanently attached. Boo. Since the mic was originally aimed at PA and dispatch market, the frequency response was rather limited to the voice area. The spec sheet claims a response of 100 to about 4K, but the lower register is so rolled off, the response is closer to about 500 Hz to 4K in reality. Besides harmonica, what is this mic good for? Well, kind of sounds like an old AM radio. Putting the mic on the floor near a drum set is a popular use, since the mic's response is not really getting going until about 500 Hz. The kick drum won't really overpower things, and you're left with a crazy mid-range sound that's just begging for overcompression and saturation. It's also at home in front of a speaker cabinet for an old-school blues kind of sound. A close relative in age is the RCA 6206 and 6207 Aeropressure mic. The color was more of a grayish tan as opposed to the army green of the Shure mic, and it was shaped more like a hand grenade than a bullet. Originally released for the same purposes as the green bullet, the RCA version featured a little satellite dish looking thing that kind of turned the mic from an omnidirectional to a more directional pattern. This piece was often lost and is not uncommon to see these mics for sale without the little collar accessory. We don't have one for ours. The frequency response was a bit wider with a claim of 80 Hz to 8K. One of the biggest differences, however, was the weight of these mics. The 6206 we have here in the studio weighs in at a hefty 1 pound 9 ounces or 725 grams as opposed to the green bullet coming in at only around 12 ounces. The mic found favor with harp players as well, especially those who wanted to work out their forearm muscles while playing. The 6206 was the low impedance version, with the 6207 being high impedance. Other than that, though, pretty much the same exact mic. This mic also features a permanently attached cable, boo, but can be modified pretty easily to have a pigtail if so desired. The mic can be found on occasion on the used market from anywhere between $100 and $400 depending on the condition and what accessories are included. This mic pretty much fills the same niche as the green bullet. Let's take a listen to it though. Another use is on vocals to give a bit of grit to an otherwise plain performance. You can leave it plain or do the same kind of grungy effect we did with the drums to add more of a statement with it. It's also fun to use as a bass for a delay since the frequency response will make the delays sound lo-fi. We have another mic that kind of fills this same spot, but I'm only going to mention it. It's been sitting behind me for quite a few of these videos. It's the Electrovoice 630. It's another bullet-looking handheld mic that sounds terrible. Anyway, third on the list is this little guy. While commonly found in conference rooms and offices for phone and video conferencing, the Boundary mic is in constant use in our studio as a talkback mic that sits on our desk just out of sight. This Boundary mic is a little different than what we sometimes use in the kick drum and as a talkback mic. Since this is about a quarter of the size of the one that we use as a talkback and maybe an eighth the size of the kick Boundary mic. This is the Audio-Technica Pro 42 cardioid Boundary mic. It's about the same size as a typical key fob and has a ridiculous 50-foot cable permanently attached to it. Boo. Kinda. This is probably too small to put a connector on for a separate cable, so I think I'll give this one a pass. While the frequency response is somewhat normal compared to just about everything else on this list, what this mic is good for is capturing things in a different way. For instance, a little fun tack and it can be stuck on the bridge of the upright bass. If you want a direct piano sound, this can fit under the strings of the piano and inside the soundboard. Using the mics under the strings, you get an almost rompler sounding piano. There's virtually no air or space in the sound at all. It's almost like a direct sound. Another use for these on piano is to get a grand piano to sound more like an upright piano. By fun tacking these mics to the underside of the piano pointing upwards towards the soundboard, we get a little more of that tin and wood sound an upright is known for. While these tones are not as drastic as the other mics in this video, you're still getting a different sound that's difficult, if not impossible, to get with a traditional mic. Another place this can squeeze in is behind a guitar cabinet or even under them. You can even tack them to the side of the baffle on the front of the speaker cabinet as well. This will get you a bunch of different sounds. Putting it behind the cabinet gets a very distant or down the hall kind of sound effect. Next up on the list is something a bit more odd. A mic that took some old stock Ma Bell had laying around and repurposed it for use in the studio. The Trash Talk Audio PP1. Trash Talk has had these out for a number of years. There are two main models, the PP1 or the payphone model, and the RP1 or rotary phone or home phone model. The PP1 features a metallic cord connected to the receiver, which is what used to be found on payphones before they all disappeared from the face of the earth. The device can be modded from having the mic put in the normal talk position or where the earpiece used to be for easier placement. I opted to go with the traditional mic in the talk position. This mic will set you back anywhere between $100 and $125 depending on the model and the options that you go for. I reached out to Trash Talk to get some answers about the builds of these mics, but haven't gotten any response. Story of this channel so far. That's about to change. The caps for the mic and earpiece seem to be glued shut, which doesn't leave room for experimentation without damaging the product. I'm interested if this is actually an old phone element or something newer that was put in its place, but either way, this thing sounds exactly how a phone sounds, or sounded, because who uses payphones anymore? No bottom end anywhere in sight, and a steep roll-off on the upper frequencies as well. Can you get this sound with an EQ in post? Yeah, kinda, but the thing here is that this mic breaks up like an old phone does. This is the Trash Talk PP1 phone mic. You usually can't simulate that with a standard mic and filters easily. You can get close, but it's just not really the same to my ears. The receiver seems to fit a standard wireless microphone clip just fine. We tried this out on some acoustic guitar and had a missed opportunity to do some Robert Johnson type stuff on it, since this mic kind of sounds like what his records sounded like. We can also use this as a trash mic for some drums as well. Next up, we have a device that has a mic, but you need another mic to pick it up. Follow me on this one. The device was found on loads of recordings in the 90s during the grunge era. Acts like Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, and Tool brought the megaphone effect to the forefront of popular music. Later on, acts like The Killers with Mr. Brightside would bring it back. Though mainly used as a vocal effect, we can get a similar sound to what we did with the Green Bullet, but with fewer steps. Other than that, though, the Megaphone sound tends to be something we try to emulate in the studio for vocals and breaks. If you have one that has a detachable mouthpiece, you can do a little bit more with it since you can kind of separate where the thing picks up and where you have to record from. The model we have here is linked in the description with an Amazon affiliate link. It'll set you back around $30 for a 50-watt version, which honestly I think is way overkill. We could have definitely done with a lower wattage version. It'll run on C batteries or a 12-volt adapter, neither of which are included with the base unit.
This is the Megaphone at a moderate volume. I'm speaking into it normally. But this is the kind of sound you get using a Megaphone.
Next is not really meant to be a specialty mic, but if you use it, quote, incorrectly, end quote, you can kind of get the same lo-fi sound out of it that we've seen on these mics, and an added bonus. Another product from Pyle. This is one of the cheapest mics you can buy at under $7 USD. Thanks to Bark over at Obscure Mics for suggesting this one to me. So here's the problem with this mic that makes it more of an effect mic when it's not intended to be. If we notice, besides the entire mic being made out of plastic, the connector is an XLR connector. Or so you think. It is in fact not a standard XLR connector. Only the ground pin and hot pin are connected. It's not a balanced connection. However, if you use the mic with the cable supplied into an unbalanced input, like an instrument input on an interface, the mic sounds more like it's intended to.
This is the Pyle mic using a high Z input on a mic preamp.
Since this mic is listed as a low impedance mic, but it's not, I ran into some issues where I was trying to match the impedance to the preamp and use a regular impedance preamp with a low impedance mic. Turns out this mic is actually high impedance. So normally we use a direct box for something that's high impedance that we want to get down to mic level with low impedance. Well, for this thing, I have this little box that I created that is used for incredibly rare situations where you can plug a low impedance unbalanced signal and either bypass it or go through a transformer that's built in here to balance the signal. Since the ground is the other half of the input on these types of mics, I have a second line run inside here that can either be used to pass the ground through or lift it if necessary. But anyway, different topic.
This is the Pyle mic using the balance box with a normal microphone input impedance.
The sound that we get out of this mic is still not great, but sounds a heck of a lot better than if you do it this way.
This is the Pyle mic using a normal XLR input.
The added bonus comes in the way of the noise that this mic imparts, and it's probably the noisiest mic I've ever heard in my life. It almost sounds like a vinyl record. Again, if you're looking for a really old lo-fi sound, this thing can deliver in spades. Last on our list today is something that is just plain wacky. It's called the Tin Can Mic from a company called CB Gitty, and will set you back around $20. I left an Amazon link in the description for this as well. Or you can just get the parts yourself for around $20 and build a half a dozen of these things. Honestly, don't do that. Just get the $20 kit if you really want it. You don't need more than one of these. In fact, you probably don't even need one. Anyway, this is essentially a piezo transducer that you glue to the lid of a tin can that's connected to a 1/4-inch TS jack. Another example of an unbalanced low impedance source that we can use with the balance box, and the balance box actually works really well with this. Intended to be plugged directly into a mixer or guitar amp of some sort, the Tin Can mic is a unique metallic resonant sound that, while certainly lo-fi, isn't really quite useful, I've found, but I'm sure there are certainly way more creative folks out there that could possibly turn this sound into something amazing. This is the sound of the tin can microphone using a high impedance mic preamp. What I find amazing about this is the fact that it picks up almost no low end at all. Usually high end is the hard thing to pick up. I mean, you think about old dark ribbon mics and really old dynamic mics. They kind of sound muffled, the high end is rolled off. This is the complete polar opposite. All highs, no lows. Hopefully you got some production ideas or at least some insights into how these various effect or specialty mics can be used in the studio. Though oftentimes it's easy enough to use a plugin or something to emulate these kind of effects, I will say that there's a fun factor involved in capturing the sound natively using one of these tools. It's something I found a lot of artists get a kick out of since it's something different, and it's certainly an experience to hold the megaphone in your hand or have a mic like the green bullet on your voice going in. When you don't have to deal with post manipulation, there's a certain freedom of creativity that many artists find exciting and can be the difference between making a good recording and a great one. I have one artist that loves using the telephone mic for effects. He gets a kick out of it. It's awesome. You can't discount the experience factor. Your clients definitely won't either. This list has been short and limited to what we have here in the studio. There are loads of other mics out there and devices that you can use for all sorts of different types of sounds that you can capture going in. Copperphone makes some really weird carbon kind of mics and stuff. That's another one that came to mind. I don't have one here, but they're out there. Special thanks to kunsterfuge.com for the piano MIDI file we used today. As always, if you've gotten anything from today's video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. If you're interested in mics and studio gear, hit that notify button so you get notified when we release a new video. It'll really help us out. If you have a suggestion for a video or have any questions about today's video, hit me up in the comments section below. If you want to discuss the social and economic impact of the First Sino-Japanese War, send a message through our website. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe. Well, that's going to do it for this time. This is Pags, signing off.